Hello, and welcome to the Video Attic. I'm your host, Michael Vaughn. Today, we're doing a new release roundup where we'll be talking about some really epic releases.
Hi, I'm Dylan Gonzalez. I'm a senior critic at geekvibesnation.com and a communications manager. I'm also the co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast. So if you are a Sundance film, be sure to give us a shout out and check us out over there.
Okay, great. Yeah, I am really excited. We have some really great releases to talk about this week. So I'm going to kick it off with a really big one, and that is Dune. And there's a better look. As you can see, it's a slipcover. Really nice. So, yeah, the movie's fantastic. You said you haven't seen it yet, right?
Yeah, mine got delayed because of snow, so I should be getting mine any day now.
Yeah, everything's been messed up, but yeah, it's going to be well worth the wait. So what kind of struck me is this film has a really nice kind of film-like look to it. And I did a little research and I found out that it was shot in digital, converted over to 35 millimeter, and then back to digital. So it really has that nice kind of soft look to it. And the Dolby Atmos track is really awesome. It's probably one of the more atmospheric, big, bold tracks that I've heard in a while. So I definitely recommend it. It does have some nice features. Again, here's a better look at that. And yeah, it's as I said, it looks incredible, sounds incredible. Definitely is a release to pick up if you really enjoyed the film.
Yeah, that's been one of the releases I've been most excited to check out this year. I didn't want to watch it on HBO Max because of the compression issues. So now I finally get to watch it once it arrives. I'm really excited about that one.
Yeah, again, if you're, especially if you haven't seen the film, this is by far the best way to see it. They really did a nice job with converting this to 4K.
Awesome. I look forward to checking that out. And for my first release, I have a really exciting one from Classic Flicks. It is the Abbott and Costello Show Season 1. Which is a 3-disc set that consists of 26 episodes, all restored from a 4K restoration of their 35 millimeter elements. So they look honestly fantastic, and it's one of the best like old school television show releases that I've seen like on Blu-ray. So very highly recommended. Classic Flicks does optimal work. They're a label I've only come to in the last year, and I realize how much I've been missing out on. Yeah. But the show itself is also really funny. If you're an Abbott and Costello fan, this is definitely one you should not miss out on, because even though some of the recent movies I've watched, like the News Hangs High, I think, which it has some of the kind of running gags that they've like, or bits that they've used in other films such as that, like weaved into this show, but they usually put a new spin on it, and they have like, it's 26 episodes. So they have a bunch of time to like weave in new material, and they have a really good ensemble to back them up. So it's just a really like funny, like kind of, there's like a loose narrative structure to each episode, but usually it's just an excuse to get a bunch of great gags into the show. Nice. So it is really funny, very, very highly recommended for classic television fans and fans of Abbott and Costello. Oh, and also, sorry, just real quick, I almost forgot. This has a lot of great special features too. I'm not sure if you can see everything, but it has 10 audio commentaries, including one with Gilbert Gottfried. So nice. That alone is a pretty interesting perk. So if you just want to hear a bunch of like old school film historians like praise Abbott and Costello and really like get into what made them so special. That's just an added bonus to this set.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm a big fan of their films, but I don't really know their TV work. So that seems kind of like a perfect time to check that out. My next release is The Great Escape from Kino Studio Classics. And it has a slew of features, which I think you can, hopefully the glare's not too bad.
So many features.
Oh yeah, it is jammed packed. So here's a better look. It does have a slipcover. If you are a slipcover fanatic, you'll want to order it soon if you want that. And there's a look inside. So the movie itself is great. I had seen it before, but I'll talk a little bit more about the transfer later. But the film itself it's a real classic. It's a terrific ensemble of like these amazing actors coming together in this really kind of awesome, escape from like a like concentration camp. So it's really again, I don't want to say a lot about it because I don't want to give it away if no one if some of you out there haven't seen it yet, but it's terrific. Now Kino also put out a Blu-ray. I have not seen that one, so I'm not really able to kind of compare how the two look. So I will just say that just looking at this, it is incredible. The image is really refreshed and crisp looking. Honestly, I've seen it a bunch of times on DVD and later Blu-ray, and this is bar none the best it's ever looked and sounded for that matter. So yeah, it's terrific though. It's certainly one of my favorite films from that era. So yeah, you said you haven't seen that yet?
No, I'm a horrible classic film fan, apparently. I've owned it on seemingly every format imaginable. I have like the big Steve McQueen like box set on DVD, and then I have it on Blu-ray. Still have yet to get to it, but luckily I had not yet picked up the Criterion Blu-ray of Great Escape. So now I can just zoom on into this 4K and finally I will make the time to watch this Steve McQueen classic in like the best conditions possible. So I'm really excited that Kino's been upgrading a lot of those old MGM titles. I'm really excited.
Yeah, and just to add real quick before we move on, as far as are the features ported over from Criterion to Kino, that's a no. Kino Criterion usually doesn't share their features. So if you are a diehard fan, I guess both is worth owning, but certainly if you want the best, in my opinion, the best looking picture quality, you're going to want to go with the Kino Studio Classics edition.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to check that one out. And I know that sometimes Criterion does lend out a couple features, usually like on the Doctor Strangelove 4K, they included some of their special features. So that's just a slight disappointment, but like Criterion, I understand. Like you're not going to lend out all your stuff. For my next feature, I'm going to go down a Kino Lorber rabbit hole for the rest of the video. This is one that they put out with Scorpion releasing, and that is Slow Dancing in the Big City. It is a film from John G. Avildsen. Sorry. It's the director of Rocky and the Karate Kid, so I'll just say that. This is not quite to the level of those classics. It's an interesting movie mostly because of the star Paul Sorvino. Some people might know him from Goodfellas. In this one, he plays a newspaper reporter who falls in love with this lady who moves into his building, who's a dancer. And although their romance is not one I exactly buy, I still kind of just give myself over to it and kind of follow their story of like her striving to be like pushing herself to be like the best dancer, like ballerina, like possible, even if it's gonna possibly like cause her irreparable harm. It's a very intense movie. But it is like there is some romance, there is some like nice comedy through via Sorvino, and there's some interesting dance scenes. There's also some melodrama involving some street kids who Sorvino's trying to help out of like their kind of poverty-stricken, crime-riddled ways. But it's not like kind of like a white savior complex or anything like that. But the movie itself, it's decent. I wouldn't say it's the best thing that I've ever seen, but it is an entertaining watch. And this new transfer is from a 2K scan of the interpositive. And there is an interview with the actor Nicholas Coster, who has a supporting role in the movie. And it's more of a modern interview, so it's like an older man reflecting back on his work in his younger days. And the film, or the Blu-ray, also has some reversible cover art, which you can see here. It's not terribly different from the front, but it's a nice option for those who like to switch out their cover arts and have different options. So yeah, it's a pretty enjoyable movie. I recommend it, and it's a good Blu-ray release if you do like the movie.
Awesome. So I also am going to go down a long Kino spiral here, with kicking off with Gambit.
Oh, nice.
Which is a really interesting film, which I will get into more. There's a better picture of the back. Does come with a slipcover and reversible art.
Very cool.
Yeah, not much different from the original cover. So as far as the movie itself, it's a pretty interesting, pretty breezy little heist comedy. The big selling point, I think, to me is, of course, Shirley MacLaine and Michael Caine. And, you know, it's, like I said, it's a heist film. It has some solid twists and turns. Some of it's fairly predictable. There's a few kind of cringy moments, like McClane's character poses as an Asian person as part of the ruse, and that's always a little yikes. But yeah, it's pretty good. It has a 4K scan by Universal. It looks incredible. I've actually never seen this movie before, but I can certainly tell that a lot of really good work has went into restoring this film. It has some really nice extras. It has 2 commentary tracks, one from the director, Ronald Neiman, the other from historians Howard S. Berger, Sergio Mims, and Nathaniel Thompson, and also has a slew of trailers. So yeah, like I said, went into it totally blind. It was fun, especially if you like those 2 actors. So
yeah, ever since you like told me about this movie, I've been very intrigued, especially since I do love Michael Caine and Shirley MacLaine. So I'm glad to hear that Kino's been keeping up their relationship with Universal, because they've been supplying them with a lot of great scans over the past couple of years, and I've been eating every one of them up. So I'm up for something breezy and like a
Yeah.
caper. So
Yeah, it definitely is. It's like it's kind of one of those perfect, you put it on like a lazy Sunday and it's not very like cerebral. It's very just kind of by the numbers. But again, it has some solid enough twists that made it enjoyable. So yeah, I definitely would recommend it.
nice. It kind of sounds similar to one I checked out from Kino last year called Arabesque with Gregory Peck, which is kind of like a spy, like European thriller, like action adventure. So yeah, I'll definitely check this one out, especially because if Michael Caine's in it, I'm
Yeah.
there. My next title is also Kino Classics title with Code Red, and that is I, I'm going to butcher this pronunciation. I will say that in advance. Le Cage aux Follies 2. The original Le Cage aux Follies is an Academy Award-winning movie. It inspired the remake The Birdcage, which people might be more familiar with Robin Williams and Nathan Lane. I've seen The Birdcage. I have not seen the original of this movie, but even still, I was able to go into this movie and still follow it. I kind of got the dynamics of the characters. It's about two like an aging gay couple. One of them owns a nightclub and the other one's a performer in the nightclub. And it kind of gets into some shenanigans where one of them comes into the possession of like a valuable object, and then there's some dangerous men hunting them down and they have to go undercover, and there's all kinds of twists and turns. Similar to you were saying in Gambit, there are some problematic elements in this because in one scene, there's a horrible blackface scene and it is played for laughs and the audience is laughing it up. And I was just supremely uncomfortable. But other than that, yeah, there probably its fair share of problematic stuff. But I do think the core relationship between this couple is handled with like some sensitivity, and it's like nice, especially like at this time, to just have like that kind of like nice loving representation on screen. So I think if you enjoy this series, this is the first time it's been available on Blu-ray. There's also a third film that I do not believe is on Blu-ray, so hopefully they'll continue that sometime in the next couple of years. So if you're a fan of the series, this is a pretty good transfer. There's a little, it's not like a new fresh restoration. There's still some age and like nicks and scratches, but it's definitely a huge upgrade from DVD. And I would definitely, I'd recommend it if you're a fan of the series.
Nice. So my next film is also a Kino Studio Classics, and that is Golden Earrings with Ray Miland and Marlena Dietrich. So there is... So yeah, this movie also kind of has some cringy moments I'll get into in a little bit, but it's a pretty, I would say, light rom-com between Miland and Dietrich. What kind of makes this movie interesting is there's a little bit of queer coding going on between, it's like a blink and you miss it kind of scene between Ray Miland and another male character. And that's pretty interesting, especially since this was 1947. This was Ray Miland right off of his Oscar win for Billy Wilder's Lost Weekend, which is an awesome movie that Kino also put out. This also really has like a really great commentary from historian and author David Del Val. I've known David for a while now. He's awesome. His commentaries are so incredible. They're really well researched. He's been a historian for like literally decades. So he's actually got to like know a lot of these people and shares his own personal anecdotes, or if he never met them, he at least talked to people that like knew them intimately. So long story short, he really knows his stuff. So certainly I think that's like a highlight on this release. So yeah, it's again, it's a fairly good movie. It's a little bit paint by numbers, but I think it's charming enough to warrant a watch.
Yeah, I would pretty much agree with that assessment. I also had a chance to watch this movie, and
Oh, nice.
I was mostly in it for Marlena Dietrich because I've become a big fan of hers over the past few years. So, and then add in Ray Milan, so I was there. It's it doesn't really, it kind of takes its time and not really in a good way all the time. I think it could have been pulled up in the edit a little bit, but I still think there's enough there for fans of the two to like dig into and enjoy. It's just like you said, you said it's not, it's kind of paint by numbers and nothing like super special, but it's like, if you like that type of movie, like kind of like an adventure, like drama, it's enjoyable.
Yeah, and again, it's kind of one of those really good, just like if there's nothing on, it's just nice. It's kind of like a nice, fluffy, escapist kind of movie. Like they have high stakes, but they're not really like that intense. There is a little bit of playing other ethnicities in this, which is very cringeworthy. So that you should probably know that up front also. But if you can get past that, I think it's a fairly good watch. Not perfect, but it's all right.
Yeah, and the transfer, like it's not a new transfer, but it's pretty solid. It's just, it has like some age wear and tear and like a little nicks and scratches and stuff, but it's definitely, you can tell it's a Blu-ray.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because it looks nice, but again, like you said, there's certainly some like artifacts and some scratching and stuff. But again, it's certainly, if you've never owned this on any other format, you will notice a difference for sure. So
yeah. Not every movie, I guess, has the capability of giving a fresh 2K or 4K restoration. So at least people still get to see it, and it's still a good transfer. And similarly, not a new transfer, but still looking pretty good, like actually really strong, is National Lampoon's movie Madness, which is through Kino Classics and Code Red. This was a follow-up to Animal House, and I'm going to be honest, I did not really enjoy this movie. It has some decent moments. It's kind of like a anthology film with like three short parts, like three stories throughout it. And the first story is kind of like a parody of kind of a self-help, like self-improvement culture. And taken to like extreme, like detrimental extremes. The second one is kind of the most cringeworthy. It's more soap opera-y, and I'll just say it starts out with a woman getting violated by a stick of butter. It doesn't show it, but it like she goes on like a revenge path from this. And I'll remind you, this is a comedy, but I was just like, Jesus Christ, okay. And then the final story I think is the most enjoyable, and that's like a parody of police dramas, and it has Christopher Lloyd in it, which I love him. So anytime he pops up in a movie, I kind of give it like an extra half of a star. So
nice.
I don't know, if you like National Lampoon stuff and you like kind of like cringeworthy, slightly gross humor, this might be like more to your liking. I liked parts of it, but as an entire movie, it's just not like, I love like Christmas Vacation and Animal House and stuff, but this this wasn't really it for me. I it's it's okay. So not I can't heartily recommend it.
Okay. So my next one is also a Kino Studio Classics, and this is Alfred Hitchcock's Rich and Strange.
Very cool.
Yeah. So as far as the movie goes, it's fine. It's certainly so I'm a huge Hitchcock fan. I've seen all his movies. I've read a ton of books about Hitchcock and his films, and you can certainly see some themes and motifs that he would basically become famous for. But this, I think your average Hitchcock fan would probably be disappointed because it doesn't really feel like what we would know as like a Hitchcock film. It kind of has that same sort of dark humor and intrigue, but it's more of a rom-com. So yeah, he did another rom-com that I really like called Mr. and Mrs. Smith, not to be confused with the Brad Pitt Angelina Jolie film. But that also was a rom-com that I think worked better. But anyways, this film looks incredible. This comes from a 4K restoration from the BFI. And I mean, right away, I could tell that it really had a lot of TLC taken to the film. The brightness, the balance and the contrast of the black and white looked really nice. I mean, there were moments where it was kind of like jaw-dropping to think that this movie was, 1931, so very nearly 100 years old, and it looks fantastic. I mean, there's a few moments that look rough, but also, for the most part, it looks incredible. And this is one of those movies that has been in the public domain for a while. So you would see like a lot of like bargain basement DVD and before that VHS versions of it with various degrees of bad quality. So this is the first time where, at least the first time in the US, that we really got a crisp, nice looking restoration on it. And it has a ton of really nice features. It has a commentary by Troy Howarth, and he's an author that I really like, and his tracks are always amazing. Actually, this is his latest book.
Very cool.
That is such a good read. But anyways, yeah, the commentary track's great. It also has the audio interview excerpts from the famous Hitchcock Truffaut interview, and it also has an introduction by Neil Solo and some trailers. So yeah, it's definitely a fantastic release. It's really exciting that Kino's been putting out a lot of early like British era Hitchcock stuff. Like previously, they just did the number 17, which certainly is a little bit more like what I would consider like feeling like a Hitchcock movie. But yeah, for fans of his films and completists, you'll definitely want to check this one out.
Yeah, I think you're talking to me because I'm also a huge Hitchcock fan.
Nice.
And yeah, I just checked out that release of number 17 last month, and I was blown away by the image quality and like the audio quality. It looked amazing. So I can only imagine that this one looks just as amazing. Like you said, like the early Hitchcock may not be like as like iconic and like known to a general audience, but for completists, it's definitely interesting to see kind of where he evolved from and like see those early influences. Like you can tell he has like certain ideas, and they just kind of continue to grow as over the decades, but it's still well worth a watch.
Yeah, like, and it's not to suggest that early Hitchcock is bad. Like some of my favorite Hitchcock films come from his British era, from like The Lady Vanishes, for example, is like one of my, probably my top like 10 of his films. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's a really good one. And
I have it in my like Criterion box. I'm just waiting to be watched.
oh, nice. Is that the Blu-ray box set?
Yeah, it has like four of his
Yeah.
movies.
Oh, nice. That's a really nice release. I have them all like individually now, but yeah, like the 39 Steps is another really good one. But yeah, so um it's just some of his stuff from that time is a little hit or miss, but yeah.
Yeah, but always at least worth checking out.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
definitely check out the reviews. My next film is even older. It is over 100 years old, and that is a I'll have to read the description just because I cannot do it justice. It is called Filibus. It is from 1915, and it is described as a feminist steampunk cross-dressing sky pirate cat and mouse adventure. That's a mouthful, but it's pretty accurate. It's really radical to see what this film was doing way back in 1915. Just the fact that they're like, this involves like a heroine who is in her like dirigible, like stealing stuff, like stealing from the rich and basically acting as a Robin Hood figure. But then also like her alter ego is hired by the police to catch like her other alter ego. So she's trying to like solve the case where she is the person she's trying to catch. So it's kind of like a fun dynamic where she's pulling one over on the police and like screwing over the rich. And it's like a really tight little adventure. I'm pretty sure it's just like 70 minutes long. Yeah, like 71 minutes long. But it's if you love silent films, this is definitely one of the more unique ones. And if you're saying like, why would I want to spend money on a 71-minute film? Well, first of all, that's ridiculous. Any film, like, if it's good, it doesn't matter. But there's also a lot of really cool short films included on this release. I believe, yeah, there are 5 short films included. So if that makes you feel better about the value of the package, there you go. Like, there's a lot of great special features here. It looks really great for a film well over 100 years old. This is just a really, really fun release. And it's definitely one of the more exciting silent films I've ever seen. So if you're, even if you're just looking for kind of for a unique entry point into like the silent film, like I hesitate to call it a genre because there can be so much, but like into silent film, definitely like if you like genre films, definitely check this one out. Filibus, it's
Nice.
a lot of fun.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely also got to check that out, and it is just as wild as you said it was. So,
Awesome.
yeah, so my next one is Crime of the Century, and this is also from Kino Studio Classics.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you saw this too. I thought it was a fairly fun murder mystery. I think it kind of lacks that sort of wit and polish of like, say, the Thin Man movies. But, it was enjoyable enough. There was a couple interesting twists and elements that actually like kept it pretty engaging. And so this has a commentary from the historian and author Lee Gambin and his costume historian Elisa Rose, as well as trailers. It's not it doesn't look like it's a new scan per se, but it still looks pretty good. Again, this movie's from 1933, so it has kind of like the typical, like some scratches and different sort of artifacts and stuff, but I mean, you can certainly tell that it looks nicer than you probably have ever seen it. I don't recall if it's ever been on VHS or DVD, but you can certainly tell in like darker lit scenes that there has been some work done. So what did you think? I think we talked about this a little bit, but
Yeah, I enjoyed it overall. My main issue with this film is that I really do not like, or I find the lead like reporter person to be very annoying. Whenever you have someone like Nick Charles and the Thin Man being like suave and cool and stuff, and then you go to this guy who's kind of weaselly and just trying to put the story together, but he's just kind of grating on my nerves a little bit. That kind of like took the movie down a little bit for me. But all the rest of the ensemble I actually found pretty compelling, and there were some nice twists and turns, like you say. I wouldn't call it like an undiscovered gem of a movie, but I do like that Kino Classics like puts effort into putting some of these lesser known films out just so they can have an audience, because this never would have been on my radar otherwise, because like you said, I'd probably never had like a physical release before, and if so, it's probably like very like limited run. So I'm glad that I was able to see it, and it is interesting enough that I was just like, okay, I'm glad that I spent my time this way, and especially because it's a very condensed movie. It's like it doesn't overstay its welcome. I'm pretty sure it's like just over 70 minutes maybe. So
yeah, 73 minutes.
Yeah. So it doesn't draw things out unnecessarily. So for that, I was just like, okay, it's a good, consistently paced drama. So I overall enjoyed it.
Yeah, like I said, it's I mean, you could definitely do worse. It's just yeah, I mean, it's all right.
If you're watching this, you can kind of tell if you're like the audience for this. Like just from our description, you'll know
Yeah.
something that is part of my life.
Yeah, like I mean, there definitely were like elements that I thought were interesting, but then again, there was some very shaggy plotting and some pacing that I thought kind of brought it down a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's I definitely 100% agree with what you say about it's so nice that Kino puts out these lesser known titles up against bigger titles like say The Great Escape, So
yeah. It's good to have variety.
Yep.
Speaking of variety, I recently saw you discussing on Return of the Living Geeks, which is people should also check out if they're on this channel. You were talking about I Dream of Jeannie, which is a show that's very near and dear to my heart. So I could not pass up the chance to check out kind of the inspiration for I Dream of Jeannie, and that is The Brass Bottle, which also stars Barbara Eden, who is the star of I Dream of Jeannie. But the twist here is she does not play the genie. Burl Ives plays the genie. So it's Tony Randall as kind of the guy who gets stuck with this brass bottle, and Burl Ives is the genie who kind of pesters him and makes his life kind of a living hell. But he's trying to help him. He's trying to make his life better, but through this genie trying to make his life better, it's just causing all kinds of headaches and puts him into awkward situations with like Barbara Eden, who I'm pretty sure is either his girlfriend or fiance. So putting him in an awkward situation with her, putting him in an awkward situation at work. It all leads up to like this court trial where he's trying to prove he's not crazy and like for believing in genies. So you can tell by the description, it's kind of like a lighthearted romp, I guess. It's very kind of like easygoing and just kind of silly. Just if you want to see Burl Ives just kind of like being fantastical and conjuring beautiful women and all kinds of stuff. It is a fun movie. I wouldn't say it's essential, and I do prefer to see Barbara Eden as a genie, but she is also very good in this. And one cool thing about this disc is there's a commentary by Lee Gambit, but also Barbara Eden comes in for a solid amount of time, and he conducts an interview with her. So you get to hear some of Barbara Eden's thoughts on this movie and kind of I Dream of Jeannie, since that the recent Mill Creek set, the complete series Blu-ray did not really include any like updated special features. You get to hear actually from Barbara Eden on this release, which is really cool.
Nice.
The master is like slightly, I don't think it's like a new 2K or 4K scan, but it's also really solid. I think they had like a really solid elements to work from in the beginning. So it's a very nice looking picture. And if you told me it was a 2K scan, I'd probably believe you because it looks really good. So if you're a fan of I Dream of Jeannie or anything like that, or you just want kind of a lighthearted comedy, this is definitely one that you should consider.
Nice.
I enjoy it.
Yeah, I feel like I need to check that out. I kind of love, what year was this again?
It was 1964.
Nice. So I really love kind of 60s like kitsch like that. So yeah, I will definitely check that out. So talk about polar opposite. Okay. So this is also Kino Lorber title, Only the Animals. And here's the back. There's no features. But yeah, so I did a full review of this film, but just to sort of break it down, it's a very bleak kind of mystery. It really plays with like fragmented time in kind of an interesting way where it will you'll get a different person's point of view, which is definitely interesting, but it also kind of adds another piece to the puzzle, and you eventually get a full picture of kind of what happened. I don't think it really sticks the landing. I think it has a really interesting premise, but it never really takes it as far or as effectively as it could have. It's all right. It looks really nice. Obviously being like a newer film, like up converted from like shot on digital, it looks exceptional. It has really nice cinematography. That's something that I kind of mentioned in my full length review. It's beautifully shot. So it looks good. It sounds good. It has a 5.1 soundtrack. It's French with English subtitles. And yeah, it's interesting. I think that it's one that I would maybe watch again, but not something I would probably watch over and over again. But yeah, it depends on if you kind of like a sort of a more slow burn sort of mystery thriller type situation. So
yeah, if anyone wants to check out Mike's full review, that's over at geekvibesnation.com. I read that, and I also saw the cover where they compared it to like a French Fargo. So I after reading your review, and like hearing your thoughts now, I'm kind of lowering my expectations because I do have that on the docket for myself this week, so I'm eager to check that out. But
yeah, I mean, it's definitely not like, it's certainly hubris to think that it's kind of on par with like the Coen brothers. That's such a huge bar anyways, but yeah, I mean, I immediately wouldn't compare it to Fargo. Like Fargo kind of had a more kind of dry, sardonic sort of black comedy, where this is just kind of bleak and everybody's kind of miserable and desperate, but not in like a quirky kind of fun way like in Fargo. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, again, I liked it. I didn't think that I just, you can certainly tell when the writers sort of wrote themselves into a corner, or there's elements that seemed a little underdeveloped. But yeah, I mean, it's fine.
Yeah. Glowing endorsement.
It's fine. See, that quote should be on there.
Yeah, that's not as flashy of a pull quote as the Fargo. Well, also a movie that I guess I would classify as slightly better than fine is 21 Hours at Munich,
Hmm.
which is based on the 1972 Olympic Games, where like some people may have seen Steven Spielberg's Munich, where he covers kind of the terrorist plot at these Olympic Games. I would say that you would be surprised to hear Spielberg made a better movie, but this is still a very interesting movie. It has Franco Nero, who I've been catching up on and like familiarizing myself with a lot in the past couple of years, especially since I watched Django, and I recently, as part of the Arrow Giallo set, watched The Fifth Chord, which he was really good in. So I was eager to see him in this, and it also stars William Holden and Shirley Knight. I like how this film kind of even-handedly deals with the complexities of each side, where like the terrorists in this are not like mustache twirling villains like you get a lot of times. It's kind of like more a three-dimensional depiction. I mean, this is still a movie from the 70s. This was made like 4 years after the event, so the events were probably still pretty fresh and like tensions were heightened. So there is still a little bit of like gung-ho action feel instead of like probably like the more nuanced stuff that you might get in like Steven Spielberg's Munich. But overall, it is a really interesting movie. And one thing I'd like to point out about this Blu-ray release is not only do you get the theatrical television or theatrical aspect ratio, there's also a 1:33 by 1 or 1.33 by 1 TV ratio, because I guess this was a TV movie also in some territories. So Kino Classics gives you the option of watching either version. So it's kind of interesting to see the composition differences between the two. And then there's also a commentary by Gary Girani, the film historian and screenwriter, which it helped put some stuff into context that, because my brain is Swiss cheese, so I've just forgot a lot of history in my day since I left high school. So just kind of putting some of those dots together to make me kind of understand some of the political ramifications of certain things and depictions of certain characters. Overall, even if you just are in the mood for kind of like a 70s action thriller, like kind of like pot boiling drama, I would recommend this, especially if you like the cast. Like if you're a Franco Nero fan, this is definitely like, I think he's pretty much always great from what I've seen. I haven't seen some of his like bottom of the barrel spaghetti westerns maybe, but like so far from what I've checked out, he's usually pretty great. So I enjoyed this movie.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. I've actually not seen the Steven Spielberg movie either. So that might be a good double feature coming up here. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my last title is called Double Walker, and that is also from Kino Lorber. And so here's the cover and back. Yeah, so it is definitely what I would say like as a slow burn film. I know you had some really interesting thoughts on it, because I know you had seen it pretty recently, right?
Yeah, I watched it right before our recording. I appreciated that it was very atmospheric. I think I said to you before the recording that this kind of reminded me of a movie that Arrow Video released, well, now 2020. I was about to say last year, but called The Deeper You Dig, which it was a really like low budget, like creepy indie that I kind of dug. Like I pun intended. So if you like really independent movies, like sure, there's like oh, I like indie movies, but like no, this is like probably maybe a couple $100,000, if that, maybe tens of thousands of dollars. I think it's a really interesting film because it's about a girl who, as a child, she gets killed, and then she comes back kind of like in an adult body and like going after all of these people who contributed to her death in some way, and at some point trying to figure out if she should keep on a path of revenge or maybe go down a path of like potential happiness with this like nice like guy who works at a theater who helps her out. So it's not, the cover art might lead you to believe that it's like a like really extremely violent, scary movie. And I wouldn't say it's exactly that. It's more like atmospheric. There is like a good deal of blood in it, but it's very contemplative and small, and it's only like 70 minutes around that. So
Yeah, it's 71 minutes.
yeah, so it doesn't, like I said before, I like these kind of shorter movies if it works for the story. It doesn't waste your time, and it just kind of, this movie doesn't keep you just like staring at your watch. You're just like, oh, okay, they've told the story they need to tell in 71 minutes. Good. Okay. So it's a slow burn, but I got onto its wavelength. What about you?
Yeah, I would agree. I even though it was kind of slower, again, it was really interesting. Definitely, again, not as the cover makes it definitely look a little bit more like in the horror genre, where I would say it's more of a blending of different genres with, with like a horror bent, which I really like movies that kind of do that interesting sort of fusion of different genres. So yeah, I dug it.
Awesome. I just have a few more releases before we wrap things up. I have an Alan Alda double feature. I have The Four Seasons and The Seduction of Joe Tynan. Last year, I kind of got more into Alan Alda as a director. I saw another Kino Classics release called Sweet Liberty, which I really enjoyed, that Alda had directed. So I was interested to check out The Four Seasons, which he also directed. I would kind of compare it kind of similarly to The Big Chill, but kind of stretched over a year. It's about a close-knit friend group who like come together on vacations, and like in the first installment, one of the friends, played by I think Lynn Carew, he announces that like he doesn't love his wife and that he's going to leave her. And then like the next time you see him with a much younger woman. So that kind of throws kind of this whole friend group into like disarray, and like makes certain couples kind of like reassess their own relationship, and they're kind of like reflecting themselves back on what they see, and like with him with this much younger woman. So you see like several different like instances of them being together on vacation. I think it probably just lines up with the Four Seasons, like the titular Four Seasons. But this has a really great cast. In addition to Alan Alda starring in it, has Carol Burnett and Rita Moreno. And I said Lynn Carew. And Bess Armstrong. She's really great. If you like kind of that kind of close-knit friend group kind of dramedy, I did enjoy this. I thought it was quite strong, and like I think Alda has a really good handle on like performances and kind of like interpersonal dynamics. So I really enjoyed it. I think you told me that you remembered that you had seen this after I told you about it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it sounded super familiar. And then when you were describing it, I was like, oh yeah, like I can't remember if I saw that on cable, but it's been a while. But I remember quite liking it. And it definitely does, you're right. It certainly does remind me of like The Big Chill, but only sort of, I guess in The Big Chill it's like younger people, where these are more like middle-aged,
Yeah, like 40 something.
Yeah, which I am definitely not getting close to.
No, you cannot, not relate.
But yeah, no, that sounds awesome. I'm definitely gonna have to check out both of those. So
Yeah, it's a good release. And then like Alan Alda did not direct this one, but he starred in The Seduction of Joe Tynan, which I kind of like slightly less than the Four Seasons, but I still think is a really strong movie. Just to quickly summarize this, it's Alan Alda plays a senator who's trying to make his way up the political ladder, and he is kind of leaving his family in the dust, and he's kind of not giving him the care and attention that they should probably be given. So it's kind of showing him trying to juggle that, but usually going more towards like his career aspirations and how that affects people. And then he starts having an affair with young Meryl Streep, as one does, I guess. So Barbara Harris plays his wife, and both Streep and Barbara Harris do a really fantastic job. And I think they slightly outshine Alan Alda. But overall, I think everyone does a good job. And if you like kind of that, the drama of like choosing between like advancing your career and like spending time with your family, like what is important in your life, I think it like kind of handles that in interesting ways and sometimes surprising ways. And this is directed, Jerry Schatzberg, who did Puzzle of the Downfall Child, which I reviewed on the site. And I enjoyed that as well. That was an interesting film. So Kino's just keeping it all in the family, and just like, I like whenever they kind of go down paths of like releasing movies with similar like artists and stuff. So I can usually go down that path with them. And then I have one final Kino Classics movie, and that is Bedtime Story with Marlon Brando and David Niven and Shirley Jones. If you're here for Shirley Jones, I will warn you that she doesn't show up until like the last 30 minutes. So you have to wait a little bit for her. But mainly why I was drawn to this is because like it's Marlon Brando and David Niven, so I had to check it out. And this is Marlon Brando in a mode that I don't typically see him in, especially in 1964. It just kind of seemed out of like, not out of his wheelhouse necessarily, but just kind of like unfamiliar to him. And as I was watching this, I was like, this seems very familiar. Have I seen this before? And then it finally clicked that this was basically the inspiration for Dirty Rotten Scoundrels with Steve Martin. And it follows a lot of the same beats. I would just say, this isn't a spoiler really, but it doesn't have as progressive as an ending as Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, I'll just say. But just seeing the interplay between Marlon Brando and David Niven is interesting to me, because they both play con men who like to swindle women out of their money. But Marlon Brando is kind of working on like a more like street level, like low, like petty type money. And then like David Niven's going for like the big fish and stuff, and going for like the really uber wealthy women, and just kind of seeing how they're kind of like on each other's turf and how they're trying to navigate their own relationship with one another to like not ruin what like the scam that each one of them has going on. I found it a pretty breezy, interesting comedy. It's 99 minutes, so it's not like too bloated or anything. And this is one of those Universal movies that did receive a new scan. It has a new 2K master.
Nice.
And it's very rich and colorful. There's not a lot in the way of like specks of damage. It's been cleaned up quite a bit. Sounds great. Has a new commentary by Howard S. Berger and Nathaniel Thompson. So if you're interested in kind of the Dirty Rotten Scoundrel, or I guess the more modern remake, The Hustle with Anne Hathaway and Rebel Wilson, if you like that kind of core conceit, but you want to see Marlon Brando in one of the roles, I guess that's the best pitch I can give to you, because I found it interesting, and it's kind of like an interesting little adult fairy tale almost, and how it's kind of unfolds. So overall, I would recommend it. It's a very good release from Kino Classics.
Awesome. Yeah, so I guess that is all of our movies that we had to present. I definitely think that there was a lot of fantastic stuff and a little bit of something for everybody, as far as like a wide variety of tastes. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, definitely consider giving us a like and subscribe. We are going to hopefully be doing these quite regularly, so you won't want to miss that. Until next time.